All right. Hello, everybody. I believe we are live. So if it is working, definitely say hi to us in the chat and let us know that you can hear us. And welcome to our first talk for the Space Trilogy read-along. I am so excited that we have all these wonderful people reading along with us. And we're going to introduce our lovely co-host in a second. But I have a little bit of an icebreaker question that you can think about as well. And as you're introducing yourself, I would love to know who you would be on Malacandra, if you would want to be a Harasa, a Saroni, or a Fiffle Tricky. I don't know if I said that correctly at all, but we're going to go with that. A Fiffle Tricky.
I think that's right.
I hope so. We'll see if anyone corrects me. That's not it. All right. Hello. And it looks like Danny, he's here. Oh, yay. Hello.
Ellie's here. Hi, Ellie. Hi, Kailey.
Hey, Kailey. Okay, so I want to shout out Kailey real quick because she has an awesome blog post where she does a chapter by chapter breakdown of the book. And I've been using it to review for myself. So thank you, Kailey, for sharing that with us. I put the link down in the description if you guys want to check that out. But Kailey has a whole blog post about this book, which is amazing. Fiffle Tricky. Fiffle Tricky.
Tricky. Cute.
Kailey says, as a pianist, she would be an erudite Harasa.
Oh.
The Harasa did have some music going.
That's what I decided I would be, was a Harasa because of books and music.
Yeah, they seem to be the most artistic ones. Let me see. Did I miss anybody?
It didn't seem like any of them were really like, oh, we're going to work on, Fiffle Tricky and Soren relations or something. I feel like I would enjoy a job like that, but everything was it already worked so well. They didn't apparently need anybody for that.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a question about that actually later about the cultures and how they all get along. Which is really interesting. Hey, Kristen! Yay, Kristen's here.
Kristen! Hi!
All right, so while everybody's popping in, we'll go ahead and have everyone introduce themselves and say something about your channel or your Instagram. And so I think we'll start with Amanda right here, and we'll just go clockwise. We'll go clockwise.
Okay. I'm Amanda. My channel is Her Pacific Northwest Washington Life, but I am taking a break this year because I need to focus on school and get my butt in gear. So I do have an Instagram that is the same name that I try to keep up to date on, but I am still posting books from March for right now. So we'll get back to it when we do. I think I'll be back next year when I'm done with school, but I don't know if it's going to keep book related or if we're going to shift a little bit, because my husband and I are actually going to soon start the process for licensing for foster care. So I don't know if I'm focusing on that. Yeah. And then I would choose, I think, so in my mind, when Ransom was first describing the Sorn, I could not get the Ents out of my mind, so I want to be one of them.
Me too. I think they are very Ent-like, for sure.
Right? Yeah. He rode on his shoulder, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's totally an Ent.
Yep. Absolutely. I think I would pick them, too, just because I like the Ents so much, and I want to be an Ent.
Yeah.
All right. Summer.
Because that's a different book that I haven't read. Am I still lagging?
Only a little bit. You're okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Summer from Summer's Moving Bookshelf. I'm kind of back to my channel and sometimes not, but you can go ahead and come check me out. And I would be a Harasa probably. I already kind of said it. I would be there for the literature and the music and stuff. So they don't write anything down, so I don't know. I could be the person that writes everything down for the Harasa, I guess.
There you go.
First of their kind.
That would be very useful for them.
Sorry.
It's okay.
That's probably really loud.
Christy, I'll give you a second. When you're ready, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh no.
Oh goodness. Yes, yeah. So I'm Christy, and I'm here because I really love to read with friends, and I love to learn. And Victoria was one of my first friends that I made here on BookTube, so I'm just so excited that we're all here chatting about this great book. I've already read the book once, so this was the second go for me, and I think I enjoyed it even more the second time. It was a little less disorienting. So I think I would end up being probably Fiffle Tricky because I just feel like they said that they treat their women really well. And because I don't know, I feel like the Harasa lifestyle would be really tough. And I'm sick sometimes, and I don't think I could handle it. And I don't think I could put up with the Sorns, even though they're cool. But if they don't think women are as, so I think the Fiffle Tricky would be where I fit in. I could probably learn to do something with my hands while I'm sitting or something that would help them out.
No, that's really interesting. You put a lot more thought into it than I did.
Yeah.
I didn't think about the different genders too in the culture. That's interesting.
Oh man, there's so much to think about in these books. Yeah,
there is.
I don't know.
Wait for the headiest thing your brain will break.
Oh boy. Looking forward to that.
Me too.
All right. Well, that was really fun to hear your answers. So I am gonna go ahead and throw up another question, but if you're in the chat and you still want to answer the last question, feel free to. But I'm just curious, since some of us are rereaders and some of us have read Lewis before, and maybe some of us haven't. So I would love to hear from everybody. What was your previous experience with C.S. Lewis, and how did you enjoy this one as compared to like anything else? Because I know a lot of people have read Narnia, at least like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's very commonly read by him. So I would love to know like how this book hit you kind of in comparison, or like his writing. We'll go backwards this time. Chris, do you want to go first?
Sure. So it's interesting because C.S. Lewis always does this thing where his characters always like represent a theme in his adult fiction particularly, but somewhat in his younger fiction as well. A lot of people have pointed out, the Aslan and Jesus thing. So I feel like that definitely happens here. We see it especially at the end. But anyways, that would be spoilery to get into. So I feel like in that sense, it's really similar to his other works. I feel like probably Narnia is my favorite because it is so imaginative, and there are like such characters with such personalities there, and that's a big deal for me. Whereas in this series, I don't feel like necessarily everybody had characters. Like there's no Lucy or Reepicheep, that is just so like, I guess, iconic to me with the personality. But there's just it's really very imaginative. I liked it better actually than Till We Had Faces. I thought it was just more imaginative as far as fiction. It wasn't like a straight retelling of something or anything like that. So I really enjoyed the differences and the similarities.
Mm-hmm. I've read Till We Have Faces, but it's been too long and I don't remember a lot of details, so I'd have to revisit that one. But I think I definitely resonate with you were saying like this book is more about the ideas more than the characters. Yeah. I don't know if we really like love Ransom as a character as much as we love Cheap.
Right. Or even like Eustace, like
right.
some characters really have a like dramatic change, and like there's some of that happening in the book, but it's not as, that's not really the point,
Yeah, absolutely. Summer?
Yeah, well, this was my second read through for this, and I've read several, although I haven't read Till We Have Faces yet. I tried to pick it up a couple different times last year and never made it very far. But, which, by the way, The Abolition of Man is also tied to That Hideous Strength if you guys are wanting to read that along with it.
Ooh,
Oh,
it's so good.
That's
I need
also
to read
another
that
great
again.
book.
Yes.
That's about 8 pages.
I didn't know
What'd
that.
you
I
yeah.
didn't know that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I would definitely look into it for these streams. With this book, it is like you said, the characters aren't necessarily as memorable, but I mean, Ransom, his name is Ransom. He's literally supposed to be the ransom for humanity in this story.
Got it.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit.
Oh, it's okay.
I mean, I feel like Ransom by himself is at least pretty fleshed out. Not necessarily I don't know how to describe it, but that he's kind of alone in the world, which is what made him perfect for being a ransom in this situation, because no one was going to ask where he was.
Everybody knows because he made sure to tell them all the details. Nobody will know if I just disappear. Nobody cares.
I was just you just set yourself up to be kidnapped, dude.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Amanda?
Yeah. So I've read the Chronicles of Narnia multiple times. I think my third grade teacher I had him for third and fourth grade, so I can't remember which grade he introduced us to the series, but that's always been with me. And then when my husband moved in with me back in 2015, he had some other C.S. Lewis books. So I have read the Screwtape Letters. But other than that, this has been the only other book of his that I read. And I'm not much of a sci-fi reader, so I kind of appreciated that this felt very Lewis-like and very fantastical, just set on a different planet and in space. That helped me enjoy it a little bit better. But yeah, I agree with the characters. They're not very likable. I mean, even though Ransom isn't he's not as bad as the other humans, he's not a character that I really connected with, and it's kind of what happens to him. I care more about the creatures on the planet than I really do about his well-being and stuff. But yeah, I thought this was really interesting just to see Lewis dive into sci-fi a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I agree as well. I think Chronicles of Narnia is definitely his magnum opus as far as fiction goes for a reason.
Yeah.
But I did think while I was reading Out of the Silent Planet that this is very underrated, and I think more people should read it because it is fascinating.
Yeah.
And it just seems like it's just much lesser known. So I was really excited.
Well, it's really underrated even in its own series, because most people pump up That Hideous Strength as the best one in the series, and quite frankly, Out of the Silent Planet is my favorite one of the three.
Oh, so. Okay, good to know.
So it could go any way for anybody.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I'm intimidated by the third one at this point because of what I've heard. I'm kind of afraid of it. But
just don't try to read it all at once. Maybe take a chapter a day or something.
Yeah, that's why we're taking a month to read that one. That
was very smart.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and actually, we've kind of talked about Ransom a little bit, but does anybody want to add anything about Ransom as a character? Did you connect with him? I know some of us have said we didn't really connect with him that much. I definitely had more distance with him as a character. And I don't know if it's just the way he was written, but I felt a little distance from him. But I still think like compared to Weston and Devine, and we can talk about them too if you want to talk about them like at the same time. So thoughts on our three main characters like Weston, Devine, and Ransom, and how they work together. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Summer, do you want to start?
Sure. I actually like Ransom pretty well. The other two obviously like definitely have a lot of problems. And Divine or Devine, I'm not really sure how it's pronounced, but he is just kind of your typical colonist that is looking for gold and doesn't really care about anything else. And Weston, like, I want to withhold things on him just because he ties a lot more into the rest of the series. And like his role in the second book is very interesting. But for Ransom himself, I really love the fact that he's a philologist. I think that's an interesting character trait, and like that aspect of himself is what helped him assimilate to the world so well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was something that like Ransom was able to connect with the different cultures because he put in the effort, and he understood like how languages were important, and we see that contrasted so much in like Weston's whole speech with Oyarsa, and how he like you can see he has such like a basic elementary understanding of the language. And I think even Lewis writes like he didn't put an effort into it, that he only
was bang to describe a gun or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The puff bang.
Yeah.
Hey Penny, welcome.
Hey!
Yeah. Okay. So some more comments about the language. Yeah, and you see how he invests in the other cultures for sure. Yeah. What about you, Christy?
That's a good point. You know, we do see a lot of the world through his interest in language. So it actually, in that sense, there's a lot of kind of character because that's tied in with his character so much. It's part of his character lens. I didn't even really think of that. So I guess that is an aspect of characterization that I hadn't considered. I pretty much like Summer just said, there's like three thematic points to the triangle, and those three guys are the thematic points. So, you know, there's the I guess, how would you describe Weston? I should have written this down.
It's hard to describe Weston having read the entire thing and knowing where he's going.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm very interested to see where he goes. He's like scientific without any humility or heart. He's really just in it to advance the species of humanity. He doesn't do it out of love. It's more like that's like his guiding principle. And with Ransom, you know that his guiding principle is scientific inquiry, but he also learns a lot of humility through his journey. And we see from the very beginning that he is also driven by compassion for people. Like he goes after the boy when he was missing, you know, when his mom like accosts him on the street. Could you check on him? You know, where's my boy? He should be home by now. So he goes and does that, even though it's like a pain for him, you know. So you could tell he has some compassion for people from the beginning, but losing his friend, you know, was a big blow to him, and he learned a lot through that. So, that we talk about. I forgot you have a question about that a little bit later, Victoria.
Oh, that's fine.
So I guess that I liked about Ransom. Obviously, he's the one who has the capacity for growth here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Amanda, we haven't heard from you yet on that.
Everything that Summer's saying is making me really intrigued to find out more about Weston.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, like
you don't so much find out more about Weston. It's about what he's a part of, but also like how he's kind of used in the second book. But I don't want to spoil it. Yeah. So yeah. You don't necessarily learn more about him himself as a character.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, he's kind of sucks as a character, but I want to see how he's used. I mean, I don't really care about Devine or Divine. He's just very typical of what he is. But yeah, I do think Ransom's really interesting in just his character from the start to finish, and just like what we can see through his eyes, and just how his perception changes as he goes along. Like, it's how when he first gets off the ship, and I know he had heard some things and he was really scared, but his first encounter with alien life form was very fight or flight. And then when he meets the Hoi, is that how it? Hoi? Sure. Yeah, just how he was very collected about it. You know, he was like, they're both checking each other out and seeing like who's going to make the first move. And then when he comes across the Sorn again, he's not freaked out by it anymore, which I think is really interesting. So yeah, it'll be cool to see where the rest goes. I will say though, this has nothing to do with characters, but there's this little like dinosaur creature on my book, and I don't remember that coming in, and I really want to know more about that.
I got that same cover.
Yeah. No, I know that's
the little red guy right here.
Oh, I don't have it. Mine's like a smaller version.
Oh,
yeah, you have shore on yours?
It's like cut off. That's so funny. Yeah, there's no real shore. There's like some shore, but not enough.
I think I remember something about like a red lizard creature in the book, and I think that's what that is. It's just like the wildlife.
I want to know more.
Yeah.
I wanted to, when that postscript at the end just opened up the world like so much. It's like, I want to know so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like about the pets.
Interesting. Yeah,
I'm curious
to know everybody's thoughts on the postscript, because I know I was reading like Kailey in her blog post, she felt the postscript wasn't necessary and didn't really like it. And I kind of felt the same way, like why is this postscript here? But I don't know. I'm curious to know what your thoughts on that. Actually, we can actually I have a question on that. Since we're on the topic. Did you feel?
I'm not sure that I read the postscript.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's kind of odd, but also cool, because he kind of takes us out of the story a little bit, and I don't know, and he's kind of done this before, when he like you're out of the fantasy world, for whatever reason, but it was jarring to me. I kind of didn't think the postscript was necessary. I kind of just wanted the fictional story, and I didn't want to be taken out of it. You guys have any thoughts about it?
I think it kind of sets up well because I feel like this could have been a standalone. I feel like pulling us out, I don't really understand how they're going to be connected yet, because to me it seems like Ransom doesn't go anywhere else. He just stays on Earth. But the postscript makes me really wonder, like, how do we get to Perelandra and the dragons on that cover, and just like the bigger world as it is, or the universe, I guess. So it was weird, but kind of interesting. It feels like it really opened it up more for the story.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he ends on time travel as well. So I was kind of like, are we going to get time travel going forward?
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like if it had been very long, I would have had a problem with it, but it was pretty short and incredibly mind-blowing and really set up, I feel like, the rest of the series probably. So I really liked it, actually. There's just so many interesting things that he talked about. Like, was it the postscript that talks about how we know, no, I think that was the last chapter, how we know who Weston and Divine are in the real world and all that stuff. I was just like, oh, are there like real world people that C.S. Lewis was writing into this? Like, but I think that was maybe the last chapter. But yeah, I enjoyed just thinking wider about the world of Malacandra and
For
the
sure.
possibility of future time travel, like you said, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And Jupiter is mentioned as well. And so I'm like, are we going to go to Jupiter? Is that Perelandra? Or I'm not
Didn't
sure.
they say what Perelandra was?
I think they might have, and I forgot. Does anybody know?
I feel like it was
Perelandra
Jupiter and
was-
Saturn. I feel like it was one of the big ones.
I can tell you if you want to know.
No.
Is it a spoiler?
I mean,
don't-
like it's the second book, because the second book is Perelandra, and so like
Mhm.
I don't really know that it's a spoiler necessarily. It's just like where he goes.
Okay. Is it
But it's up
Jupiter?
to you guys. No.
Oh, it's not Jupiter. Okay.
So I have a weird question because I thought about this a long time before we found out that Malacandra was Mars. Did anyone else like have a flashback to Magic School Bus times when the episode when they were like playing with the
that's
gravity
what I
of the
remember.
different planets?
Oh,
I was trying to figure out like what planet is kind of similar to Earth and this, that, and the other. I kept thinking back to that episode and I was like, is it Mars? I don't know. Can things grow like that on Mars?
yeah,
That's where my mind went.
that's funny. Did they do a Magic School
It's been
Bus
such a long
episode?
time since I've watched Magic School Bus, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I want to see that episode now.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so a few people are saying we can't go to Jupiter because it's made of gas. That makes sense. So Perelandra is Venus apparently. So I'm excited to go to Venus in the next book. But so is Venus also. Venus is also made of gas. I know.
Well, that's interesting.
That's funny.
I mean, it was written in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably didn't know.
I know Danny had mentioned, Danny from Spinelli Speaks did a rapid review on her channel where she does like a quick 60-second book review, which were really fun. And she mentioned the space travel was really interesting and just the speculation from, pre-lunar landing and how the gravity works and everything on this spaceship. It was really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, why were they not wearing clothes? Was it just because it was hot? Like, I was not quite sure about that.
Yeah, well, talked about one side of the spaceship being really cold and the other being really hot. Like he couldn't touch the metal.
Mm-hmm.
Danny. That's hilarious.
Oh, okay. That's right. I remember that now. Glendondra.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Oh, that's funny.
It
That's right.
says it at the end of the postscript.
Okay.
It's
I
mentioned
love that
elsewhere
it
too.
connects.
I remember it.
I love that it connects it to like, was it like the 14th century writers and stuff, and like Chaucer, and they're like finding clues in like medieval manuscripts and stuff, because that was totally C.S. Lewis's jam.
Uh-huh.
He has the philologist, who is Tolkien's jam, and he's got the medieval stuff, which is his own jam.
Yeah, I did think that was pretty cool.
Well, the medieval stuff will continue to play a part, especially in that hideous drink.
Yes. Oh, this is feeling like National Treasure, except Europe style now.
That's exciting to know. Okay, so I'm gonna lead us on to a new topic. I'm curious about your thoughts on some of the themes. So there's a lot of like big overarching themes. Death is a big one, and like being okay with death and the afterlife and like what comes next. And then just like generally culture. So does anybody have any like favorite themes that they thought were really interesting or that they wanted to discuss? Amanda, do you have any?
This is where it gets like way out of my element on discussing books. Yeah, I did think that the culture in particular was really interesting, and just kind of how, like, especially how each different species had their own thing that they were like really good at, and they kind of just stuck with that and somehow managed to create a planet where they all just kind of work harmoniously together, which is so interesting because that's not at all how Earth is. So to see that, it's like, how do you make such like a perfectly working society? Yeah, and then the death theme in particular was really interesting too, and just how they, like, especially the Hrasa, right? Those are the beaver things, how they view it, as compared to like what we would normally do in a situation where one of our loved one passes away. Yeah, that's as far as I can go.
No, that's great.
Well, I think part of the thing about why they can live in harmony so well is because they lack the ambition that humanity has. Like, they don't aim for the top because there is an ultimate ruler. Yeah. And like, that was one of the points that was brought up, that everyone like here wants to be their own little Oyarsa and is trying to rule himself. And like, that's where it tends to fall apart. Yeah. So it's the fact that they're not striving for the top that they can live harmoniously.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Danny mentioned like wondering about the hierarchy, and it really doesn't seem like there is one there. They all just play whatever part that they're feeling like they're good at.
Mm-hmm. They're like in their own little thing.
So do you guys think that Lewis is like presenting a utopian society here? Like, ideally?
I think so. I think that's probably what he's aiming for.
Yeah. Christy, I know you had some thoughts on that too.
Yes, I have a theory on this. I'm excited that I get to share it. My dad and I had an argument about it, literally. So my theory is that this is a pre-fall society, because there's a conversation, between Ransom and his friend Hoy, I think. I forget what his name is, one of the Hrasa, where like the concept of bent is like unfamiliar to the point of almost complete foreignness. Like they don't understand somebody who doesn't do their part and, bravely face death at the end and, know that there is, what is the creator's name? Malindil or something? He's like, oh, even our children all know that. Like, you guys don't know that? Like, so I feel like there's that conversation. There's the fact that the Oyarsa on our planet, the Silent Planet, fell. I think that's Lucifer, maybe another name for him. I think also that Lewis believed, I'm just listing off all the reasons why I think it's a pre-fall society. I think in one of his writings, it may have been God in the Dock, Lewis speculated that on humanity, he thinks that animals had their own fall. And I think that he's portraying animals pre-fall in this book because they can communicate with their humans, the pets and not the humans, the pets and the now can communicate in this world. And that's something he expresses in one of his nonfiction writings, I think an essay or something. So, thank you, Dry. I'm not crazy. But the thing that my dad really argued with me about was like, this can't be a pre-fall society because there's death. And pre-fall, there was no death. The wages of sin is death. Death entered after humanity first sinned. And so, but there's obviously death in this. But my argument would be, I think that there is, I think that the death, I think it's the wages of death refers to like a spiritual death. So I'm pretty sure that the spiritual death would lead you away from God, once you physically die, even in a pre-fall society. And so I don't think that the pre-fall society was ever meant to be the forever home. I'm talking about the Bible now. So if this is an analogy for a pre-fall society, I think God would be planning to bring us closer to him anyways, even if there was a pre-fall society here on Earth. So that's why I think it's okay that there's death in this society. Like, it still works, the analogy.
Well, and he
That's
was
my
explaining
theory.
that there was like first life and second life in this too. And like the first life, in order to get to the second life, there would have to be some kind of death. So like that still works with the pre-fall concept.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that no call, that was a good point, Christina. A no fall society. I don't think they're gonna fall, but who knows? There's 2 more books.
Right.
That's sobering. Hopefully Weston didn't bring the fall to what is it? Not
Perelandra?
Perelandra. Yes, Malacandra, thank you. The names.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, going back to what you were saying at the beginning there of them having no notion of bent. And bent was the closest word that he could get to even describing what he wanted. And that made sense to them. So I thought that part was really interesting too, with that they just didn't even have a word for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that goes back to like the language too. Yeah, they didn't have a need for that word really because they didn't have any bent people in their society.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Well, it looks like you have a lot of people that agree with you here, Christy. So
Yay!
yeah, there's such interesting themes. Like we could talk about that one theme like for a really long time. So I know Christina had mentioned in the Discord she wanted to talk about language, and I know we have some musicians here. So language and music and how those came through in the book. And I think Lewis and Tolkien were really good friends, and like they both have made up languages like in their books, and Tolkien even more so, right? He like made an entire language for Lord of the Rings. So yeah, and also just the theme of language and how it's used between our Earth characters and going to Malacandra. So what are your guys' thoughts on the use of language in the book?
Well, I thought that it was interesting that the Hrasa's language is the universal one, because the Pfiffeltriggi and the Sorn said they had their own language, but that the Hrasa one was kind of universal. Kind of made me think of English, like you can basically go anywhere and usually find someone that speaks English.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as the music goes, like he said something about like it didn't fit the sense of time that he had, which I found really interesting. Like their rhythm is different.
Yeah.
I thought that was.
I loved that.
Those little details are what make it like feel real, you know, that they would have a music that like we wouldn't understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought the language was really interesting of the Hrasa specifically. It started to get very confusing because every word of theirs seemingly started with an H. And so I couldn't keep things together in my mind. So I kind of liked how he kept reiterating it as we were reading through. And I really liked the use of their like prefixes and suffixes so that it was a language that made sense. So that's, again, too, like why I feel like it was so easy for him to pick up. And then just Weston being so lazy and not even caring. It's like, it seems like a fairly straightforward language to learn. And he'd at least taken the time to learn the basics, but then it's like, if you're going to learn the basics, why not, fill in the rest of it there, especially if you had planned to go back. But yeah, I thought the language was really interesting, and the poetry and stuff. And again, just like the music, I thought was really fun. It made me think, like how he couldn't find the time and the rhythm. It's like, oh, that's like me playing a piece for the first time. It's like, what's counting? I don't even know.
That's funny. But I want to also I think what Dry is saying is also really interesting about Ransom translating for Oyarsa. Yeah, it's when he's talking to Oyarsa. And that's just such an interesting choice for C.S. Lewis to do, to make, like, we see Ransom kind of struggle to explain it to them, because Ransom also sees, like, this is foolishness, and Ransom's like, I'm trying to explain it, but I have to figure out how to explain it in ways they understand, because what you're saying is foolish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that whole section just really interesting.
Right. It's like when they say one thing and it's like, I'm going to change this to make it sound a lot nicer.
Yeah, he kind of sugarcoats it a little bit in some parts. Yeah. Christy, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I love what you guys have both said, Amanda and Victoria, pointing out that Weston didn't even want to learn the language. Like, clearly that's not the kind of science that he's interested in. He's interested in the domination kind. Any kind that will further mankind, even though that's not even a concept that actually is. Like, Oyarsa points out, your concept, it's a little flawed. And he's like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, that's, he doesn't care about that kind that uplifts people and helps them to be, to shine in their own way, because we're all now, like, he just doesn't consider, so he wouldn't, of course, learn their language because he doesn't value them that much. They're just kind of like an obstacle for him. So another good point of characterization there.
Yeah, it's about respect, right? He's kind of showing he doesn't respect them or their culture by not taking the time to learn their language.
Well, and then Divine doesn't even bother to learn one word.
Which comment, Summer? Sorry.
She made a point about saying that he obviously meant for English to become the dominant language, so he didn't even bother because he was going to try to overtake that part of their culture.
Right.
Essentially, is
exactly.
what she said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can't find that comment for some reason. Oh. Yeah, that's a great point, though.
That's I love the point that Christina just made. Like, everybody has kind of their own study that I feel like they could connect in a situation like this with another now. In Ransom's case, it was language. He was able to see, like, somebody else, it might be music, somebody else, it might be anything that you really connect with on Earth, and you see that, this now has that, that could maybe humanize them. If you're looking and if you care, but if you don't, you're not going to care, and it doesn't matter if you see it or not. I would argue a lot of times people do see it, they just don't care. Colonizers, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, this is so interesting, and I know it's like all of these themes are just, there's so much we could talk about. I'm gonna move us to, because we have, like, I don't want to go over an hour, so we have like 15 minutes or so left.
This has been wonderful so far. Thank you, Victoria.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm so glad we're reading this. They're so interesting.
There's so much in a 160-page book.
That's the crazy part.
Right?
Like, it's such a tiny, tiny text.
Yeah.
We've kind of talked about this already a bit, but thoughts on cultural paradigms and how we see Lewis kind of challenge Western cultural paradigms, especially with colonialization. So we've touched on this a bit, but were there any other things you noticed that we didn't touch on?
I think we touched on it, but I just wanted to say again, I do think he really was disturbed by the direction of science taking in his day. He just felt like there could be a lot of potential badness if we met aliens at that point in history with the way we were viewing science. The superiority that humans were feeling because of their understanding Whereas when Ransom shows up on this planet, he knows nothing and he's so humbled. And I think that that's just a trip that he wishes, like, he just really wants science to be tempered by humility. And I think that that's something that I don't know that that's really happening in the West. I feel like pretty much scientific absolutism is probably the norm, at least among intelligentsia.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
You're like, I disagree completely.
No, it's not. No, I don't disagree. I wasn't thinking about, I guess, science in general and like how he could be commenting on that, but I can definitely see
Hey,
that.
can you
As
say part of it again? I think part of it cut out.
What
well.
can you?
Like part of what you said cut out, so I didn't catch everything.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I just think he's sort of speaking to scientific absolutism and saying that, you know, humans don't know everything. And so when we act like we do, we're missing important things. And Ransom was a case where he learned, and became more humble with his science, and realized there was more than what he understood from his experiences on Earth. And I think he's speaking to that Western cultural paradigm of science is the highest knowledge.
Okay, I got it now.
Yeah.
No, yeah, definitely. The themes kind of fit along with Jurassic Park. Like I was thinking about that whenever we were talking about pushing science just for the sake of pushing science and not really thinking about what you're doing and like what can happen afterwards.
Yeah,
100%. Very, very good point.
Mm-hmm. That's a good comparison. Jurassic Park. It's a book I need to read.
Oh, you haven't read it? It's good.
I have not yet.
Well, Danny's doing a read along later this year.
Yes, I think there's going to be an opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for coming, Kailey.
Thank you, Kailey.
Thank you so much for your blog. Oh, that's a good one too, Kristen. Challenging our notion of what's worthy, and what has value. Yeah, we especially see that with what Weston values as well. What he values for progressing mankind is actually seen as
values heavily in the evolution of man too.
Oh, really?
He talks about like why things have value and how we can determine it. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. I'm so glad you pointed that out. I've read The Abolition of Man twice, and it is such a journey. I need to read it again.
It really is.
I don't think I have that one. I have a few other nonfiction books by C.S. Lewis that I haven't gotten to, but I don't think I have Abolition of Man. So I'll have to get that before Perelandra. or Hideous Strength. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dry had pointed out another point about like the assumptions that are made by not only by like Weston and Devine, but by Ransom himself. Like he spends he spends the first part of the book running away from everyone because he has the assumption that everybody is, they're going to kill him. They're savages. Like he has all these ideas already.
Yeah.
And we see how those ideas are just broken down.
I have a comment about that because
that's really interesting that we don't have a concept that life can be good outside of us.
Right. Yeah.
I wonder though if his perception when he first got on Malacandra and saw the Sworns would have been different if he hadn't overheard Devine and Weston saying they were going to give him up as
that's true.
As a sacrifice.
That's true. He had an idea already of what he was going for.
Right. He thought he was automatically going to the planet to be killed. So I might have run away too and thought they were savages.
Yeah, you can't blame him. You can't blame him for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, his perception of that really quickly shifted when he met Hui because at that, and granted he looked different, but it was still a creature that he wasn't familiar seeing at all. And instead of being afraid and instantly thinking of him as a savage, he wanted to learn more about what he was and how they could communicate and get along and stuff. So I think it would have been really interesting to see, had that piece been taken out, if he would have been afraid of the Soren from the start and thought of them as savages, or if he would have gone the same way he did with the Harasa of trying to learn about them.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Kristen made a really interesting point too, that we take for granted in our culture that progress is good or better. And that's so true. I don't know if anybody's here has read Wendell Berry, but he talks about that and he's just like, that is not true. Like, if we can just be like happy and preserve what we have of our beautiful world and what God has given us, we can make advances for sure. But like, we need to stop and think real hard before we just tear the earth apart for oil, or, you know, whatever he's talking about at the time.
Yeah, I think Lewis might agree with that too.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome, guys. Let's see. I think we have covered a lot of stuff today, a lot of food for thought. So thank you for all your amazing comments and thoughts on all those deep philosophical questions. I would love to know, if you want to, if you give books a rating. I know some people don't, but if you give books a rating or a star rating, I would love to know what this book would get for you. For me, I think it's 5 stars for me, just because there is so much to dive into. I don't think it's a perfect book or a perfect story necessarily. And I think I feel bad for the boy that we never, like, he just kind of disappears. I'm like, what happened to the poor little boy?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like some plot holes here and there, but for me, just because of all these really interesting ideas, I would give it 5 stars.
Yeah,
I tend to rate things on. Oh, sorry. Everything was lagging over here.
Summer. Go for it.
I was just gonna say, I tend to rate things based off of like what the intention of the book is, and the intention of this book is the themes. So I think like Lewis does spectacularly on that. So in my eyes, it's a 5 star.
Cool. We got some 4, 3. We get a lot of 3s.
Yeah. So I also gave it a 3. But I don't pick up on themes and stuff like you all do. So just from a purely like surface level, not diving into it at all, it came out for a 3 for me. But I do think like having this discussion in my mind upon reread, it would probably bump it up to a 4 or 5.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I always find the same thing. Discussions always bump it up for me too.
Yeah.
So I feel like if we're looking at this as a sci-fi novel, I would say it's like a 5 star, like a A+. Because I love the themes, and this is very much that kind of sci-fi, like we talked about, without like the characterization and all that. As like a novel, like as a whole, I did kind of struggle with it, I think, because I need the characters to be more and better, I guess. But there's so many good ideas, like even without that. I think that time period as well. I remember reading that mysteries at the same time period, you know, characterization wasn't really a thing in mysteries. So I'm sure it was the same in sci-fi as well. And from what I've read, it was. So I think that it's just like a bit dated in that sense. But because I've seen Chronicles of Narnia, I know what C.S. Lewis can do with characters. So I'm going to give this like a B+ because I missed the characters. Yeah. But because I struggled a little bit with the descriptions. We didn't talk about that too much, but the descriptions were so disorienting at the beginning, which I know was on purpose, but it was really hard to read.
I can see that. Yeah. Yeah, I think it is on purpose, but for sure, you're like, what? I'm seeing just like colors and shapes and not like landmarks, at first when you land on the planet. That is disorienting for sure.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and I think too it's really
There
interesting.
was a really good
because-
line in the book.
Go ahead, Summer.
No, I was just gonna say, like, there was a really good line in the book that I liked that said you can't really see something until you know what you're looking at, and so that's definitely kind of part of the world building in it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and it's like a theme thing too. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, I was just going to say, looking at the publication date of this book versus Narnia, there's like a 15, 20-year difference between those.
Oh, so
And-
Narnia was later?
Yeah, Narnia was later. So this was written in, I think, published in 1938. And so maybe a lot of that could be contributed to the fact that he's diving into a genre he's not familiar writing with, but also beginning of his writing journey, and you can see it kind of develop a lot more as he gets into his later books.
That is such a good point. Thank you for looking that up.
Yeah. I was trying to figure it out because I was like, I couldn't remember exactly when his lifetime was. And then I was trying to figure out, like, was it before the lunar landing? Was it after? I'm trying to figure out, like, how much
JFK.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the time period that it's written definitely it explains some things that we would have a problem with, or that we would read differently. I think I'm biased to just like C.S. Lewis because I already like him, so I'm like, I love everything he does.
Yes. I'm down with that.
Yeah, it feels, that's interesting. I didn't think of it as like a fable. It's novella like.
Yeah.
So short.
That's so crazy too, because it took me both times I've read this, it took me a long time to get through because I literally want to read every word. And Christina's like, oh yeah, I read it in 2 sittings. Like, it's like, what? How? It takes me a long time because I like digging through all that theme stuff. It's a workout of the brain.
Yeah, I read it really slowly as well, but I read everything slowly, so that's not new for me. Does anybody have any, I don't know, predictions? I'm kind of terrible with predictions, but
Dragons.
We need dragons.
Yeah, the cover has them. There better be dragons.
Yes, on one of these planets there needs to be dragons, absolutely. And I know we have some rereaders here, so if you haven't read it, do you have any predictions?
I did start the beginning, so I know a little bit, but I didn't finish it, so there's a lot I also don't know. I honestly, I can't predict anything, really.
Not with this story.
I have no idea.
More space, Danny says.
More space, yes. Another planet.
Another planet. We know
Weston will return.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know there's such outlandish stories too that they don't seem to like fit in a box that we can kind of like see where it's going. So I love that about it.
Me too. There's just so many unexpected details in actual writing that wherever he takes the story, I'm sure it's going to surprise me.
Yeah, for sure. Everything is a surprise. I just love the weirdness of everything. And because it's on another planet, he can be as weird as he wants to with it. There's not really a plot to predict on. Yeah. Yeah.
I am looking forward to more references to the literary past. I'm hoping that I think Summer said that there would probably be more of that. So that is one prediction that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too.
I want to know how the 14th century on Earth is connected to all these other planets that we apparently haven't heard from since.
Yeah.
Oh, Kristen thinks we're going to meet Malindil, perhaps, which would be cool.
Oh.
and meet our Oyarsa again.
So Kristen predicts that he's gonna die.
He's gonna die and meet Malindil. Maybe. Oh, really? I'm usually slower with first reads, Christina.
Interesting.
All right. Well, I am super excited to get into the next book. Our next talk is going to be Saturday, May 1st at the same time as this one. So 11 a.m. PST, 2 p.m. EST. And there's also a Discord, and we've been having some interesting chats in there too. So if you're not in the Discord, we would love for you to join us there. And just while you're reading, you can drop some thoughts and put spoiler tags around them as you're going through the book. So definitely join us in our Discord as well. And thank you so much, everybody who's reading along with us, and for my wonderful co-host. This was so fun. This was so fun for me.
You did a great job.
You guys pointed out some amazing things that like I hadn't seen before. So that's why I love talking about books like this with other people. So thank you guys so much. When's the next debate? So 2 weeks, we'll read Perelandra, and we'll talk about it in 2 weeks from today. Basically, exactly 2 weeks, I think. So May 1st. But yeah, thank you guys so much. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.